Hey everyone, so in this series of videos I'm talking about 14 layers of strategy as applied to river flows and you. And in general on this channel I hope to empower you guys through strategy to advance in your piano playing with maximum efficiency, quality, and independence. And as I said in previous videos in this series, typically I'll talk about in my teaching layering dozens or even hundreds of strategies and mindsets on top of each other. But in this series I am just choosing 14 arbitrary layers, and this is just as an extended example of one possible way that you can get started on this general idea of combining many different methods, tactics, mindsets, whatever it is that you want to call them. The underlying thinking is that instead of doing isolated tips and tricks, and when we do one thing we're losing the power of all of the other things, we are combining many independently powerful concepts together, and that will be exponentially more powerful. So anyway, so far we have 4 layers. I guess we'll switch over here for a second. We've got separate hands here. I wrote slow, observant, with quality. Let's see here. And of course we have this like go super small, overlapping node, right all fingering. So in general, we just have some ideas of, of course, starting with your separate hands instead of both hands, going slowly, carefully checking notes, making sure that things are good and overall, of course. Starting with super small sections, it's easier to maintain quality when things are extra small. And always including the next note after the measure, like one measure plus the next note, one page plus the next note, and so on, and writing out all the fingering so that we can stay consistent in terms of muscle memory, awareness. It's much better for memory and continuity and all that. And so now we're starting to get into spaced repetition. And I can speak just a little bit to that. So in terms of spaced repetition, I've covered it in other videos and such as well. I would say that to sum up, we just don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. Honestly, in my previous videos, I didn't present myself as a very bad student in those like hypothetical practice examples. Not that it's like wrong or evil or anything like that, but I mean bad student as in like my practicing, wouldn't be very effective, right? So in many cases, people will go through massed practice when they're not in the right mindset. They will just play the same thing over and over and over again. And it typically is not going to lead to very powerful long-term results. They call this the illusion of knowing in the learning research. And it seems like you're getting great results, but it's really just a short-term gain, just like if you repeated a fact to yourself over and over again. So even though it might seem like you're not making as much progress for now, it's actually better to learn a given thing and then move on from it, then come back later, relearn it again. Every single time that you relearn, you are strengthening that neural bridge. You're expending the effort of retrieval, right? You're spending the cognitive effort to retrieve that information from somewhere else. And so each time that you do that, your connection with your long-term memory is going to grow stronger. So we're not yet at the point where we're using my formalized logical methodology, really, but just at least we're going to start applying this concept even in a haphazard way, right? So with any of these layers, you can try to apply them independently first. I just don't want them to be used, or I don't believe they should be used as isolated tips and tricks forever. But there's experimentation that's necessary. You want to see like how effective things are on their own. You want to get used to them. And then over time, as you feel more comfortable, you can start to combine them. So yeah, I would say it's totally fine to just experiment with this concept. Let's say, for instance, if we go back to river flows in U, of course. So if we look here, let's say that, maybe we'll go over here again, right? Let's say you want to practice like this part here or this part here or something. So I could be playing, just out a bit. Maybe I want to do it slowly and carefully. And even in this part, I think it's nice that I'm combining, I'm playing this little part, but I'm also including the next note as well. That's part of what these little circles are trying to remind students of, to like include the next note. Even if you practice a little tiny fraction of a measure, you include the next note as well, right? That's that overlapping note idea. So maybe I'm doing that. But after I do this, instead of doing this like many, many times in a row correctly, I'm actually going to want to move on and go on to the next part. So let's say that I go on to this part that's right after, maybe this part over here. Maybe I include the next note as well. Right? So in terms of these little markers, by the way, these little circles, these happen to designate quarters of a measure. I'll talk about this probably a little bit more in a future video. If you don't know exactly where the quarters or halves of the measure are, you can just make your best educated guess, right? So for instance, here you can see that there are like 16 things in this measure, even if you didn't know that there are 16th notes. And so then, obviously, you can divide that by 4. So you have 4 equal sections of 4 notes each. Or on the bottom, you have like these 8 notes here in the left hand, and we have 4 equal sections of 2 notes each, right? So you make your best educated guess as to where those quarters of a measure are. And so then, when I'm practicing these small sections, although we haven't talked about it in detail yet, I can be practicing these little tiny sections. If you know it's specifically a quarter of a measure, that's great. If you don't, that's totally fine too. And we're trying to include the next note, trying to stay slow, careful, staying separate hands. And as we move on here and we practice these little sections, we're just going to play them correctly, maybe like once or twice, and then just move on. So again, I might play like from here to here perhaps, and then just move on to the next part. Maybe I'll play like this last part, which starts from over here, right? So I can play like, right? So I'm playing this part over here. Now most people would probably stop right there, but because I know about this idea of overlapping notes, I'm going to include this note as well, like this one that's right over here. So this is how I will, make sure that the transitions are smooth, like I was talking about in the last video. So I'll just kind of highlight that to be clear. Let's see. So that'd be this part, all the way to this next note over here, right? And I notice also that it's a finger number 1 over here. So I'm playing, right? And then after I do that, again, I've taken the liberty of marking with these circles, like roughly quarters of a measure or so. Let's try this and see if it's any better. Okay. So now I can play like maybe from here to here, right, to this specific note. I can make this a little bit smaller, perhaps. Okay. Just from there to there. Right, so just that little part there. And then I can play like, right, so that would be this part over here, which is like from here to here. Okay. Now, I realize too, as I'm demonstrating these examples, that it may be that, you don't, again, know how to mark these circles. You don't know, like, where the exact points of overlap are. So there definitely could be variation, like, from this. It might not be even as exact as what I'm demonstrating here. So let's say that I didn't know exactly where these circles were. I had no exact sense of that. I'd probably still try to do overlap of some kind. Right? So maybe, for instance, like I'm playing like just this part, like the 5-2, the 5-3-2, and then maybe I'm playing like the next part. Maybe I'm doing like this, like 2-1-3, Okay. And then maybe here, I just played this 3, so I know it's good to continue playing from that same note. Okay. So I played that 3-1 over here. Maybe now I'll play this like 1-4. Okay. That seems good. Then I'll go on to the next part. Maybe I'll play this like 4-5-4-3-4. All right, that seems pretty good. And then again, I have to decide here, like, can I play like 5 notes or can I only do like 3, right? It's kind of, I just have to see, like, let's try it. Maybe that part's hard. So maybe I can only do the first 3. That seems pretty good. Right, so I just played mute here, and I just played to the 2, so I can just pick up right from the 2 as well too, right? Maybe I'll start from the 2, and then play like 2-1-4. Smooth it up. Right, and again, what I'm doing here is I'm just playing them and I'm just moving on. Similar to what I was doing in other videos. Some people would probably play like the 2-1-4 over and over again, or they might play from the beginning of this line over and over again. So I want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Now, after some time passes, and this is really where the spacing part comes up, I can then go back to the beginning of this and just do that all over again, right? As in, for instance, I could play, this part that I practiced before all over again. I could play this like 4-5, whoops. I could play this like 4-5-4-3 that I highlighted in the yellow over here. And then go on to the next part here, like I was doing earlier. So I've got. And then I could go from the beginning of the next line, play that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Right, and then I could play this part again over here, the 5-3-2-1-3. Right, so in this video, I'm not going to talk so much about like increasing the size of the sections. You'll probably find that naturally you're just able to play larger and larger sections over time, frankly. So definitely something to experiment with. And yeah, let's take a look here in terms of these layers. So we've got separate, so you can see I'm doing slow, or sometimes I'm doing slower in order to check the quality and everything and to be careful. I'm practicing very small sections. I'm always having that overlapping note. All of the fingering has been written, obviously. And then now I'm just trying to be especially conscious of spaced repetition. So that means that as I'm playing through these sections, I am just moving on from them after I've gotten them. Even just once or twice. Let's just check this one thing here. Okay, this seems okay. So, and then I'm waiting a while, waiting for time to pass. Then I'm coming back and then learning them all over again, these little sections, right? And over time, they likely will start to expand in some way. And I'll talk about that, I think, in a future video. So yeah, hope that's helpful. Remember to play things, move on from them, come back, learn them again, move on from them, come back. Try to keep these layers so far in mind. And if you found that helpful, please like, subscribe, let people know about the channel. Let me know if you have questions in terms of how things work in these layers so far. And yeah, looking forward to talking about more strategy with you guys.